Before the video begins, I quickly want to shout out my powerthon/subathon event I'm running on my Twitch starting on Monday the 11th, where I'm trying to grind from 400 power to 450 in under 1 week, with potential special guest appearances. So be sure to catch me live at twitch.tv/llama2, and now back to the video. Right, hello guys, and welcome back. With the release of the Edge of Fate expansion, armor set bonuses were added to the game, where for wearing either 2 or 4 pieces from the same armor set now grants you varying benefits that range from things like increased elemental buff duration, improved kinetic weapons, and collecting ammo heals you. All of this and more is what we will be exploring today, and as of right now there are exactly 8 set bonuses that are currently earnable through various sources. So for each one I'm going to be breaking down exactly how to earn them, how they work, and what combos they pair best with, along with a ranking on which sets I personally think are worth chasing. So let's get into it, and if you enjoy this type of content then a like and subscribe is greatly appreciated. The first set we're looking at today is Techsec, and this armor can be earned by completing either solo or fireteam ops in the portal. So starting with the 2-piece Wrecker bonus, it reads, you deal significantly increased kinetic damage to combatant shields, overshields, vehicles, and constructs. So taking a look in game, normally my multi-mac deals 8 damage per bullet to this combatant shield. However, when I equip 2 pieces of Techsec gear, this now gets raised to a whopping 24, which is exactly 200% or 3 times the regular amount, which as you can see also shows up as yellow numbers, which is actually pretty impressive. Onto the 4-piece Concussive Rounds bonus, it states that defeating powerful combatants or breaking a combatant shield with kinetic damage releases a disorienting kinetic shockwave. And taking a look in game, first things first, a powerful combatant in this context refers to anything that is orange bar or above, and when defeating said powerful combatant, as you can see, a decent sized explosion occurs. The same happens when breaking a combatant shield with kinetic damage, and overall it's a pretty decent effect, especially on a bunched up group of adds. And there's a couple of combos I want to share with you that maximize the effects. The first of which is the brand new Mercury A longbow with kinetic tremors, because if you manage to get one that's at least tier 2, kinetic tremors will come as enhanced and can trigger in as little as 2 arrows. Pair this roll with the brand new Temporal Blast weapon mod, and with both the 2 and 4-piece bonus, this weapon is able to absolutely rip through shields and cause some really devastating explosions. And if like me you also have attrition orbs, you'll be making a boatload of orbs too. The other combo involves the Severance Enclosure exotic chest piece for the Titan, or Spirit of Severance, because its exotic perk states that powered melee final blows unleash a damaging explosion, which as it turns out is a kinetic explosion. And well, take a look. This combo is very fun and only works because the Severance explosions count as kinetic damage, so definitely keep this in mind for any builds that can use Severance, such as a class item with Spirit of Contact and Spirit of Severance. Overall, a very potent armor set with some super unique combos. The next armor set we're taking a look at is the Bushido set. This armor can be earned exclusively from Pinnacle Ops activities in the portal. Starting with the 2-piece AION bonus, it reads, final blows with freshly drawn or reloaded weapons heal you. And yep, it does what it says on the tin. The actual healing amount isn't a lot though, and according to Compendium, it's roughly 30 HP. And unfortunately, it does have a slight internal cooldown, which is a bit of a bummer for such a small amount of healing. It does get slightly better with the 4-piece Unfaltering Focus bonus, which reads, bow, shotgun, or sword final blows temporarily reduce incoming damage. Damaging targets with those weapons extends the effect. And in-game, you are granted 6 seconds of resist ×1 for doing what it says, which by the way is a 10% damage resistance from all sources, and dealing damage / getting more kills will extend the effect. Plus, it plays a nice little sound effect whenever you're getting kills with those weapons. So definitely a very roleplay oriented bonus, and I can definitely see where Bungie were going with this, promoting you to keep swapping between bows and swords to gain heals and resist. But overall, it's not a fantastic set and therefore relatively low priority. Moving on, up next we have the Last Discipline set, and this one can be earned exclusively from Crucible activities in the portal. The 2-piece Terminal Velocity bonus reads as follows. Final blows with primary ammo weapons grant your primary ammo weapons temporarily increased reload speed, and in-game here is a side-by-side comparison of the reload speeds from the default and with the bonus, and as you can see it is slightly faster, and according to Compendium it's plus 20 reload speed and an additional 0.95x reload animation duration scalar, so not too bad. And by the way, the buff itself lasts for 6 seconds and can be refreshed on kills. The 4-piece Power Loader bonus is actually rather interesting because it states that picking up an Orb of Power grants special ammo progress, and while this may initially seem like a very potent benefit for PvE, unfortunately it doesn't hold up, with each orb giving a rather small amount of progress. I also tried this with triple special ammo finders and it didn't seem to improve by much. So for a 4-piece investment, it is asking a lot. And as far as PvE is concerned, I wouldn't be worried about this one. Though for PvP, I'm sure the 2-piece bonus is nice for improving weapon feel. Up next, we have the Twofold Crown set, and this armor is earnable exclusively from the Trials of Osiris Crucible game mode. The 2-piece Crook and Flail bonus allows the following effect. Picking up an ammo brick heals you, and to my surprise, following the mediocre healing from the Bushido 2-piece, the amount you get is rather significant. In fact, it's actually 70 HP according to Compendium, which as some of you may know is the same as old recuperation from before the Edge of Fate. And just so you know, there is no difference between collecting either heavy or special ammo, both provide the same amount of healing. And there's also no cooldown, so despite this bonus coming from a PvP armor set, it's definitely a solid contender for a PvE loadout, especially if you're making tons of special, which honestly isn't that hard. The 4-piece Gift of Sight bonus makes it so final blows with primary ammo weapons grant you briefly increased radar resolution, and as you can see, it simply increases the accuracy of your radar when defeating enemies, which for PvE isn't nearly as necessary as it might be in PvP, and as such, I'm deeming it exclusively a PvP benefit. So don't worry about this one for PvE, the 2-piece is already good enough and all that you need. Overall, a very nice set to have a 2-piece option for, except it does require playing Trials, so good luck with that. Moving on, we have the 2 sets you can earn from the Kepler Destination, the AION Renewal and AION Adapter armor. And to earn them, the Renewal armor can be earned by default from any Kepler gameplay as soon as you start the DLC, but you can only begin earning the Adapter set after completing the Mythic Kepler questline that requires you to replay through all of the campaign on the Mythic World tier and complete all world events also on the Mythic World tier. Keep in mind that if you want to increase the chance of earning a specific piece, you can do so by attuning them at the Altar of Relativity. So to start, we're first going to discuss the AION Renewal armor. The 2-piece Force Converter bonus states that after a final blow with any rocket or grenade launcher, sprint for a short time to gain speed booster. And before we dive into the demo, initially you might think that this definition is rather restrictive, but actually it isn't, because while not stated in the description, this perk and the one for the upcoming Adapter set work from any missile source, as in things like Quicksilver Storm's grenade mode, the Kepler weapon origin trait which releases a mini rocket, rocket-assisted frame weapons like rocket sidearms, or even the new rocket-assisted pulse rifle, Grand Overture missiles, hazardous propulsion rockets, the list goes on. And chances are, if whatever you're using has a rocket/grenade component, it will trigger the perk. And in my opinion, a superb pairing is hands down the brand new Rocket Pulse. Scoring a kill with it will grant Force Converter on the left of your screen that remains there until you start sprinting, at which point it will convert into Speed Booster, letting you run 12.5% faster and gain the associated 15% damage resistance benefit. The 4-piece Reactive Booster bonus reads like so. Once per activation of Force Converter, sprinting while at critical health, being suspended, or being slowed by a stasis effect will immediately grant Speed Booster for a short duration. So in a nutshell, all this does is remove the wind-up time to activate Speed Booster should you be either critical health, suspended, or slowed, which for a 4-piece bonus is very situational, but I do see the vision. This set is definitely supposed to be more of a helper on Kepler, since there are plenty of enemies that apply both suspend and slow, but is it worth dedicating 4 pieces to? I think not. As for the AION Adapter set, you can definitely look at this one as a sort of level up from the previous, since again it has the same activation criteria of rocket/grenade based weapons, but this time the 2-piece Force Absorption bonus reads as follows. Final blows with any rocket or grenade launcher temporarily decrease incoming area of effect damage, and this perk lasts for 15 seconds, has no name associated with it, and comes with 2 components. One is that any incoming AoE damage is reduced by exactly 20%, which for simply getting a kill with the Rocket Pulse is pretty bloody good. And second, explosive self-damage is reduced by a whopping 60%, and as you can see, I can't even blow myself up with the rocket, so in my eyes, this is a very potent 2-piece bonus that I would highly recommend running. The 4-piece Reactive Shock bonus states that when Force Absorption is active, taking melee damage causes you to emit a disorienting burst once, and I'm gonna be honest guys, this is terrible. It does indeed work, but it's definitely not worth the investment. The 2-piece, on the other hand, very much is, but this one, nope. Considering everything we've reviewed so far, the 2-piece Adapter bonus is definitely something I'd be considering for your builds, but we'll talk more about that later. For now, let's move on. Up next, we have the Lustrous set. This armor can be earned from the Solstice event that, as of the current upload date, is still ongoing and dropping at tier 5, so definitely grab these while you still can. The 2-piece Photo Galvanic bonus states that receiving healing temporarily grants your solar weapons increased flinch resistance, handling, and reload speed, and for PvE, the reload is the only thing you'll notice. Again, I've got the side-by-side comparison here, and it does work with any source of healing, including orbs, restoration, and so on. However, the benefits don't work when you're at full health. You have to be less than full in order to receive them. The 4-piece Cauterize bonus states that rapid solar final blows heal you, which on paper sounds really strong, but in actuality is just mid. The amount of healing isn't a lot, in fact it's 35 HP according to Compendium, and what's more, it's on a cooldown, so not only is it a small amount, you can't trigger it repeatedly, which is honestly pretty disappointing since this one was one of the sets I was looking forward to the most. Overall, I'd say that the Lustrous set is definitely not worth running, and if you were ever concerned about missing out on this armor, don't be. There's plenty of better ones out there, and you can safely get away with getting it once for the fashion and calling it there. Finally, we have our last set of armor, and that is the Collective Psyche set from the Desert Perpetual raid. The 2-piece Accretion bonus reads as follows. Picking up an ammo brick gives you a stacking bonus to weapon swap and stow speeds until you die. This buff stacks up to 20, yes, 20 times, and collecting special ammo grants 1 stack, and heavy ammo 3 stacks, and in truth it's not terribly noticeable, but it's better than nothing. The 4-piece is where things really get interesting though. The perk is called Doppler effect and states that suspend, unravel, and sever effects applied to targets and radiant and restoration effects applied to you have increased duration. And the part that it doesn't say is that this is a huge 50% duration increase. As you can see here, normally my Ember of Torches hammer grants 8 seconds of radiant, but with the 4-piece bonus this goes all the way to 12 seconds. And the suspend duration is also pretty crazy considering the default duration was also buffed, so with this set and Thread of Continuity, your suspend duration will last for around 9 seconds, which is rather nice. This set is perfect for any setup that builds heavily into any of the listed effects, like Starfire Warlocks for the Radiant and Restoration duration, or Abeyant Leap Strand Titans for some super juiced suspend effects. Only problem is that it does require running the raid, and as of right now, it doesn't seem like tier 5 raid gear will be available until the Epic raid launches during the Ashen Iron update. In terms of an overall ranking, you can basically forget about the Bushido, Last Discipline, Lustrous, and AION Renewal sets, leaving Techsec, Twofold Crown, AION Adapter, and the Collective Psyche sets as the quote good ones. And as for my personal recommendation on which sets to mix, it varies from build to build, but from a purely general perspective, I think running 2 pieces of Twofold Crown gear for the 70 health on ammo pickup and 2 pieces of AION Adapter for the 20% splash DR on rocket pulse kills is a very solid split. However, if you're a fan of kinetic weapons and kinetic based perks, then the full 4-piece Techsec is very fun to use and surprisingly effective if built into properly with accompanying weapons and exotics. And finally, for an ability based build that centers around either solar or strand effects, the Collective Psyche 4-piece is 100% the way to go. Overall, it's clear to me that besides a couple stronger options, set bonuses are definitely intended as a cherry on top type of addition to your builds where they don't necessarily provide enormous bonuses, but rather smaller ones that are usually quite nice to have. And that's totally okay with me. I'm glad we finally have this system. Anyway, that's been your breakdown of all 8 currently earnable set bonuses. If you enjoyed, then be sure to leave a like and subscribe and all that jazz. And hopefully see you at the start of my Powerthon on Monday. Thank you for watching, and I'll see you in the next one. Bye for now, dear viewer.